Hello everyone, and thanks for taking the time to check out this video. For today's brief hands-on presentation, we're going to be talking about a fast, fun, and resource-efficient method to improve A2 pistol grips for AR pattern firearms. We're not here to waste time today, so let's get right into it. Here we're looking at the A2 pistol grip. Despite being the most widely produced AR pattern pistol grip of all time, courtesy of its ongoing 42-year tenure with the US military, it is also among the least liked furniture pieces ever made. That's not to say there's anything fundamentally wrong with this grip. It is quite literally good enough for government work. However, the point remains that it has a shockingly poor ergonomic reputation for something which was ostensibly intended to accommodate a wide range of hand sizes. This is further muddled by the fact that the prior A1 pistol grip actually did seem to work for everyone, but we won't go down that road further. Today, all we are talking about is one way you can transform an A2 grip into something a little more optimized. If you want to get more performance out of a component you already own, save yourself 25 bucks or so, look cool at the range, and or just keep some plastic out of the landfill, this procedure may be for you. So step one is we're just going to go ahead and cut the finger stop off the front of this pistol grip. This offensive protuberance is, after all, the main complaint most people have with the A2, and I certainly include myself in that category. It serves a purpose, yes, but there are better ways to achieve that functionality that don't force some people to compromise an otherwise comfortable shooting grip. You don't need to be a surgeon or a machinist to figure out how to remove a polymer finger stop, but I'll tell you how I do it. First up, I cut vertically with a hacksaw, removing as much material as I can, of course without breaking the invisible plane of the A1-ish profile grip which lies underneath. Of course, this is going to leave us with a good bit of leftover material, so I now switch to a utility knife to start roughing out the correct profile using deep, deliberate scallop cuts. Using this method, you can see I get the overall shape pretty darn close to the final profile. Next up, I switch to a hand file, and this is helping me blend everything together and get that profile exactly right. Once the edges of that former nubbin start to blend with the surrounding material, I know I'm getting close. And finally, I go ahead and achieve a clean surface finish by wet sanding with 180 grit or higher and CLP. I don't actually think I understand why this works, and it's possible that wet sanding with water would work just as well, but I've always done it this way, and it does achieve a much smoother finish on polymer than you can achieve by dry sanding. And just like that, we've essentially got a 25-degree A1 grip, which isn't bad at all. If you want to call it here, that's perfectly fine, but I'm going to go ahead and take things a step further. Next up, we're going to need some hockey tape. If you have more money than you have sense, you can pay 16 bucks a roll for this stuff from companies that need to reimburse their social media team. But if you have more sense than money, you can go down to Beer League at your local ice rink and trade a couple Zinn pouches for as much tape as you need. Personally, I think I'm somewhere in the middle of the money sense continuum, so I just bought a couple rolls of Mueller tape on Amazon for 8 bucks or so, and this is good stuff. Now, in order to apply this tape to our pistol grip, we're going to borrow a technique from the people who have the greatest degree of competence in applying hockey tape. And stick with me here. It turns out those people are hockey players. First up, we are going to need a narrow strip of tape, roughly 2 to 3 feet in length. We're shooting for roughly 1/4 to 1/2 inch in width here, but obviously you can play around with what works best for you. If you're in a situation where you need to make the most out of the limited tape, I recommend starting with a roughly 1 foot length of tape per person, and then ripping that into 3 to 5 strips of equal width, depending of course on what the initial width of your tape is. Either way, once we have our little ribbon or ribbons, we want to twist them up tightly, making all reasonable effort to keep the sticky side facing out. Of course, the wider of a ribbon you start with, the thicker of a rope you end up with, so keep that in mind. And now we get to the fun part. With our long sticky rope or ropes, we can begin to apply these to our pistol grip, creating whatever underlying texture we might want. Since the rope is sticky, it should stay in place wherever we lay it down. We should be able to mold it, and we can trim excess whenever needed. In terms of pattern, we've got tons of options. We can go with a basic spiral pattern, the way you might see on a hockey stick. We can go with something more resembling cross-hatching, or we can even elaborately lay out finger ridges perfectly sized to our natural grip. Sky's the limit here. Figure out what works for you. In my case, I'm going to go with a rather dense concentric circle pattern with some light cross-hatching on top. Once we're happy with our texture pattern, we go ahead and use the full width of our tape now to tightly wrap everything in place, being careful to avoid big creases and giving yourself at least a 1/4 inch margin above and below our texturing rope, as this will help the tape keep from peeling back and ultimately collecting dust. To be honest, I think I'm cutting it a little bit close in this clip, so try to give yourself a little bit more of a margin than I did. Either way, once everything is wrapped, go ahead and smooth everything out with your fingernails and give it some good pressure to lock everything in place. And just like that, we've turned a mediocre A2 grip into something exceptionally good. Sure, we could have just bought a Magpul or BCM for 25 bucks, and that would have been great, but this is great too. Hockey tape applied in this manner is an exceptionally effective grip texture. It's tacky but not sticky. It's durable but won't shred your gear. It works great dry or wet, barehanded or with gloves. If and when you do wear through it, it's cheap and easy to replenish. Whether this is a good option for you is ultimately not for me to say, but from my perspective, this is a great way to save a few bucks, ward off existential dread for 30 or so minutes, and complete a build in a satisfactory manner without wasting time, money, or materials. And that's it for today, guys. If you got anything of value out of this video, please consider clicking the YouTube buttons or leaving me a comment. Otherwise, thanks again for stopping by, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.